Welcome to Chapter 4 of Old Testament History, Session 1B. The Kingdom and the Prophets, Saul's Kingdom. Samuel the prophet had just anointed Saul to be king over Israel and told him what was going to happen to him in the near future. And then he put a big exclamation mark on it, saying, Chapter 10, verse 7, "And let it be, when these signs are come unto thee, that thou do as occasion serve thee, for God is with thee." Okay, do as occasion serve thee, because God is going to be in his heart. All right? God is going to be with thee. This may be a common salutation to us, God be with you. But let me show you what it really means. We're going to do a phrase study, and we're going to see what the word says. All right? First usage. Genesis chapter 21, verse 20 through 22. Genesis 21, 20 through 22. "And God was with the lad, Ishmael, and he grew and dwelt in the wilderness and became an archer." Okay, God was with the lad. He was with Ishmael. "And he dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took him a wife out of the land of Egypt. And it came to pass at that time that Abimelech and Phicol, the chief captain of his host, spoke to Abraham, saying, God is with you in all that you do." Now, what does it mean? God is with you. Well, we're not going to guess. We're going to let the word speak. Next use, Genesis 26. Genesis 26, 24. 26, 24. "And the Lord appeared unto him the same night," this is Jacob, "and said, I am the God of Abraham thy father. Fear not, for I am with thee, and will bless thee, and multiply thy seed for my servant Abraham's sake." So here it says, I am with thee, and in the same breath it says, I will bless thee. Genesis 28, verse 15. Genesis 28, verse 15. "And behold, I am with thee, and will keep thee in all places where you go, and will bring thee again to this land, for I will not leave thee until I have done that which I have spoken to thee of. And Jacob awaked out of his sleep, and he said, Surely the Lord is in this place, and I didn't realize it. And he was afraid and said, How dreadful, how awesome is this place! This is none other but the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven." So here, I am with thee, and in the same breath it says, I will keep thee in all places where you go. All right. Exodus 18:19. Exodus 18:19. "Hearken now unto my voice, and I will give you counsel, and God shall be with thee. Be thou for the people to Godward, that thou mayest bring the causes unto God." So, I will give thee counsel, and God shall be with thee. That's put together. All right? Isn't that interesting? So far, we've seen blessing and keeping and getting revelation, counseling, are coupled with the phrase, God is with thee. Numbers 23:20. Numbers 23:20. This is the prophecy of Balaam over Israel. "Behold, I have received commandment to bless, and he hath blessed, and I cannot reverse it. He hath not beheld iniquity in Jacob, neither hath he seen perverseness in Israel. The Lord his God is with him." The whole tribe of Israel. and the shout of a king is among them. So here again, it couples blessing with the Lord being with him, all right? That blessing is an associated term. That's a signpost, all right? Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 1. When thou goest out to battle against thine enemies, and seest horses and chariots, and a people more than thou, be not afraid of them. For the Lord thy God is with thee, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. So don't be afraid is another benefit of the Lord being with you. Joshua chapter 1, verse 9. Have I not commanded thee, be strong, of a good courage? Be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed, for the Lord thy God is with thee, whithersoever thou goest. So, not needing to be afraid is another common term, a signpost, with God being with you. 2 Samuel chapter 14. 2 Samuel chapter 14, verse 17. Thine handmaid said, the word of my Lord the King shall now be comfortable for us as an angel of God, so is my Lord the King to discern good and bad. Therefore the Lord thy God shall be with thee. So here it's associated with the king being able to discern good and bad. In other words, you receive instruction. That is a trait of the Lord being with you. First Chronicles, chapter 17, verse 1. Now it came to pass, as David sat in his house, that David said to Nathan the prophet, Lo, I dwell in a house of cedars, but the ark of the covenant of the Lord remains under these curtains. Then Nathan said unto David, Do all that is in thine heart, for God is with thee. So doing what is in your heart, what does that mean? Well, one of the traits of God being with you is you get instruction. All right? Isn't that interesting? First Chronicles 28:20. First Chronicles 28:20. David said to Solomon his son, Be strong and of a good courage, and do it. Fear not, nor be dismayed, for the Lord thy God, even my God, shall be with thee. He will not fail thee nor forsake thee until thou hast finished all the work for the service of the house of the Lord. So here, fear not shows up. All right? 2 Chronicles 1:1. 2 Chronicles 1:1. And Solomon the son of David was strengthened in his kingdom, and the Lord his God was with him, and magnified him exceedingly. So here, people notice all these traits. God is with him. They see that God's giving him instruction. They see that he is not afraid. They see the blessing. All right? They see all those other traits. Do you see that? You understand? Now, if you go back to the first use, back there in Genesis 21:20, now let's read that with those things in mind. Genesis 21:20. And God was with the lad, and he grew and dwelt in the wilderness and became an archer. Now there's not much corresponding information there, but if you get down to verse 22, it came to pass at that time that Abimelech and Phicol, the chief captain of his host, spoke to Abraham, saying, God is with you in all that you do. Why did they say that? Because it was obvious he had the blessing. He was not afraid. God kept him, protected him. He informed him. He gave him revelation, and it was obvious. Do you see how that works? 2 Chronicles chapter 15, verse 8. 2 Chronicles 15, verse 8. And when Asa one of the kings, heard these words and the prophecy of Oded the prophet, he took courage and put away the abominable idols out of all the land of Judah and Benjamin, and out of the cities which he had taken from Mount Ephraim, and renewed the altar of the Lord that was before the porch of the Lord. And he gathered all Judah and Benjamin, and the strangers with them out of Ephraim and Manasseh, and out of Simeon, for they fell to him out of Israel in abundance, when they saw that the Lord his God was with him. Now we understand what that means. So here is Asa, the king. He is in the southern kingdom of Judah after the kingdom split. And the northern kingdom went to pot because Jeroboam was an idolater, and he set up that competing religion to Judaism in the northern kingdom because he did not want his people to go down to the feasts and all that going on down in the temple in Jerusalem, because if they did, he felt that he would never be totally independent from the southern kingdom. And so what he did is he set up pagan altars in Dan and Bethel, the north and the south of his kingdom, so that the people would not go to Jerusalem. But there were strangers, it says in verse 9. They were people from the other tribes, from Ephraim and Manasseh and from Simeon, that fell to Asa, that allied to Asa out of Israel, the northern kingdom, in abundance, when they saw the Lord his God was with him. Isn't that neat? Now we know what that means. Isaiah 8, verse 10. Take counsel together, and it shall come to naught. Speak the word, and it shall not stand. For God is with us, not you guys. Isaiah says, 11, for the Lord spake thus to me with a strong hand, and instructed me that I should not walk in the way of this people, saying, say ye not a confederacy to all them to whom this people shall say, it's a confederacy. Neither fear ye their fear, nor be afraid. Sanctify the Lord God of hosts himself. Be separate. And let him be your reverence. Let him be your dread. And he shall be for a sanctuary, but for a stone of stumbling, and for a rock of offense to both houses of Israel, and for a snare to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. All right. The Lord is with you. Let him be your dread. He got revelation, and he feared not, for God is with us. Verse 10. Isaiah 41:8. But thou, Israel, art my servant, Jacob whom I have chosen, the seed of Abraham my friend, thou whom I have taken from the ends of the earth, and called thee from the chief men thereof, and said unto thee, thou art my servant. I have chosen thee, and cast not thee away. Fear thou not, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am thy God. I will strengthen thee, yea, I will help thee, yea, I will uphold thee with the right hand of my righteousness. You see how that all goes with I am with you? Isn't that wonderful? Isaiah 43, verse 1. But now thus saith the Lord that created thee, O Jacob, and he that formed thee, O Israel, fear not, for I redeemed thee. I have called thee by my name, thou art mine. When thou passest through the water, I will be with thee, and through the rivers, they shall not overflow thee. When thou walkest through the fire, thou shalt not be burned, neither shalt the flame kindle upon thee. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were thinking about that. Woo. For I am the Lord thy God, the Holy One of Israel, thy Savior. I gave Egypt for thy ransom, Ethiopia and Sheba for thee, since thou wast precious in my sight. Thou hast been honorable, and I have loved thee. Therefore I will give men for thee, and people for thy life. Fear not, for I am with thee. I will bring thy seed from the east, and gather thee from the west. And I will say to the north, give up, and to the south, keep not back. Bring my sons from far, and my daughters from the ends of the earth, even every one that is called by my name. For I have created him for my glory. I have formed him. Yea, I have made him. Wow. Look at that blessing that comes because God is with us. Jeremiah 15:20. Jeremiah 15:20. And I will make thee unto this people a fenced brazen wall. And they shall fight against thee, but they shall not prevail against thee, for I am with thee, to save thee and to deliver thee, saith the Lord. And I will deliver thee out of the hand of the wicked, and I will redeem thee out of the hand of the awesome. He was going to save him, deliver him. See the common threads in the tapestry, the associated terms. Jeremiah 30, verse 10. Jeremiah 30, verse 10. Therefore fear thou not, O my servant Jacob, saith the Lord. Neither be dismayed, O Israel. For lo, I will save thee from afar, and thy seed from the land of their captivity. And Jacob shall return, and shall be in rest, and be quiet, and none shall make him afraid. For I am with thee, saith the Lord, to save thee. Though I make a full end of all nations, whither I have scattered thee, and yet I will not make a full end of thee. But I will correct thee in measure, for I will not leave thee altogether unreproved. Jeremiah 42:11. Jeremiah 42:11. Be not afraid of the king of Babylon, of whom you are afraid. Be not afraid of him, saith the Lord, for I am with you, to save you, and to deliver you from his hand. And I will show you mercies upon you, that he may have mercy upon you, and cause you to return to your own land. Amos. Good old Amos. Amos chapter 5. Amos chapter 5, verse 14. Seek good and not evil, that you may live. And so the Lord, the God of hosts, shall be with you, as you have spoken. Haggai, chapter 1, verse 13. Then spake Haggai, the Lord's messenger, and the Lord's message unto the people, saying, I am with you, saith the Lord. Haggai 2:4. Haggai 2:4. Yet now be strong, O Zerubbabel, saith the Lord, and be strong, O Joshua, son of Josedek, the high priest, and be strong, all you people of the land, saith the Lord, and work, for I am with you, saith the Lord of hosts, according to the word that I have covenanted with you when you came out of Egypt, so my spirit remains among you. Fear ye not. And finally, Zechariah chapter 8, verse 23. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, in those days it shall come to pass that 10 men shall take hold out of all languages of the nations, and even shall take hold of the skirt of him that is a Jew, saying, We will go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. Well, hallelujah, saka to you. When God said he is with us, that's what it means. Those are not empty words. It is not a cliche. Those words are powerful. He blesses, he protects, he informs. The effects are so pronounced, it's obvious. Others see it. So be not afraid and do what he has called us to do. Woo! For he is with you. Samuel told Saul that he would receive the Spirit of God and be turned into another man. 1 Samuel 10:6. And the Spirit of the Lord will come upon you, and thou shalt prophesy with them, and shalt be turned into another man. Wow. That is another difference between the Spirit in prior administrations and now. In this administration, we must edify the Spirit. In prior administrations, it came fully grown. Speaking in tongues is the best way to edify your spirit in the current administration. If people don't like speaking in tongues, I still love them, but they are misinformed. because it's God's will. It's very powerful. It's perfect prayer. It's God's will. Jesus said we could, and Paul said we should speak in tongues. It is the manifestation that we can get the most reps out of, because you can do it 24/7, anywhere. You can't work miracles 24/7, only when they're available. Can't receive revelation 24/7, only when God has something to say to you. You can't interpret or prophesy 24/7, only in the proper setting in a worship service, decent and in order. But we can speak in tongues 24/7, anywhere, anytime. So that is why it is the manifestation that edifies, that builds up spiritually. It makes us stronger for great exploits. Of course, there's some settings in which we shouldn't do it out loud, right? But we still can be praying silently, mentally, praying in the Spirit, no matter where we are, anytime. I remember doing it in Carlsbad Caverns in Texas, deep in the bowels of the earth, when they turned off the lights, and it was so dark you could not see your hand in front of your face. And so I spoke in tongues. Now, not out loud. That would have freaked everybody out in the dark. No, I spoke in tongues and mentally, and I knew that God was still there. So you can be praying silently, mentally, praying in the Spirit, no matter where you are at any time. And you won't get a busy signal or a telco tone. Beep, beep, beep. The number you reached is no longer in service. Or the voicemail box that you've reached is full and can't receive any more messages. Nope. We have a hotline to God. So that's what speaking in tongues is for, to edify your spirit. But back then, the Spirit came fully grown. You'll be turned into another man. Chapter 10, verse 9. And it was so that when he turned his back to go from Samuel, God gave him another heart, and all those signs came to pass that day. Bang! Bullseye! And when they came thither to the hill, behold, a company of prophets met him, and the Spirit of God came upon him, and he prophesied among them. And it came to pass, when all that knew him beforetime saw that, behold, he prophesied among the prophets. Then the people said one to another, what is this that has come unto the son of Kish? Is Saul also among the prophets? And one of the same place answered and said, but who is their father? Who is the senior prophet? All right. Therefore, it became a proverb. Is Saul also among the prophets? In other words, the change in Saul was so profound. The news spread all around. It became a proverb. And when he had made an end of prophesying, he came to the high place. And Saul's uncle said to him and to his servants, where'd you go? And he said, to seek the donkeys. And we saw that they were nowhere. We came to Samuel. And Saul's uncle said, well, tell me, I pray thee, what did Samuel say to you? And Saul said to his uncle, he told us plainly, the donkeys were found. But the matter of the kingdom whereof Samuel spake, he didn't tell him about that. So now Saul was set to be king, and all that remained was to inform the people, to announce it. So chapter 10, 1 Samuel 10:17. And Samuel called the people together unto the Lord to Mizpah, and said unto the children of Israel, thus saith the Lord God of Israel, I brought up Israel out of Egypt, and delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians, and out of the hand of all kingdoms, and to them that oppressed you. And you have this day rejected your God, who himself saved you out of all your adversaries and your tribulations, as you have said unto him, nay, but set a king over us. Now therefore present yourselves before the Lord by your tribes and by your thousands. And when Samuel had caused all the tribes of Israel to come near, the tribe of Benjamin was taken. So they're doing lots, okay? And when he had caused the tribe of Benjamin to come near by their families, the family of Matri was taken, and Saul the son of Kish was taken. And when they sought him, he could not be found. Now, here in verse 19, the word thousands, okay, present by your thousands, right? Remember that has another meaning. It can also mean clans, all right? Because that's the alternate to the huge number of people that came out of Egypt. If it was as large as it says it is, they would have been marching for days across the Red Sea, and they made that crossing in just one night. So the other meaning for thousands can mean clans. And here is a great example of it, because after Benjamin had been almost wiped out a few hundred years before, remember in the last chapters of Judges, there weren't that many thousands of the Benjaminites. And then verse 19, it says the sequence is tribes and then clans. And then verse 21, it's tribes and then families. You see how they're parallel? So that's why I'm saying that the word thousands here needs to be translated clans. All right? Chapter 10, verse 22. Therefore they inquired of the Lord further, because, where is this guy? You said he's going to be the son of Kish, and we can't find him. So they inquired of the Lord further, if the man should yet come thither. And the Lord answered, behold, he's hid himself among the stuff. Now, this made me wonder, because, Saul had the Spirit of God upon him. So why was he hiding? Well, it made him into a new man. Why then did he seem reluctant for the job? Well, maybe he was guided to do this. Because, if he came out like a prima donna, he would have gotten less respect. Perhaps, and we won't know for sure, but perhaps this was a way to show humility. Okay? Verse 23, and they ran and fetched him from thence. And when he stood among the people, he was higher than any of the people from his shoulders and upward. And Samuel said to all the people, see ye him whom the Lord hath chosen? He's going to be center in our basketball team. No, there's none like him among all the people. And all the people shouted and said, God save the king. Then Samuel told the people the manner of the kingdom and wrote it in a book and laid it up before the Lord. And Samuel sent all the people away, every man to his house. And Saul also went home to Gibeah, and there went with him a band of men whose hearts God had touched. Now that's beautiful, because, when God raises up someone, they bless others, the Spirit of God, and that blessing causes some to ally themselves and help. This is true of the pivotal people in Ephesians 4:16 as well. The believers array and intertwine around the minister who supplies, and a ministry is born. Same's true back then. Prophet would arise and others would be attracted to serve with them. They were called the sons of the prophet. Now, not sons physically, but sons as in followers, what is done and taught. And those helpers, they are better than gold. But anyway, 1 Samuel 10, verse 27. But the children of Belial, those guys born of the devil, how shall this man save us? And they despised him and brought him no presents. But he held his peace. There's always going to be opposers who lurk around. The guys are children of Belial, born of the devil. They're always going to oppose the things of God, all right? Chapter 11, verse 1. And when Nahash the Ammonite came up, he encamped against Jabesh Gilead. And all the men of Jabesh said to Nahash, make a covenant with us and we'll serve you. Don't kill us, we'll be your slaves. And Nahash the Ammonite answered them, said, on this condition, I'll make a covenant with you, that I put out your right eyes, and lay it for a reproach upon all Israel. He flaunting his power. And the elders of Jabesh said to him, give us 7 days respite, that we may send messengers to all the coasts of Israel. And then, if there be no man to save us, we'll come out to you. This is all part of that bravado that they flaunt before a battle. Like one other place, the Assyrians say to Hezekiah, well, you don't have any horses. We'll even give you some horses so you can fight us, and you're still gonna lose. This kind of fighting words, right? But anyway, chapter 11, verse 4. Then came the messengers to Gibeah of Saul and told the tidings in the ears of the people. And all the people lifted up their voices and wept. And behold, Saul came after the herd out of the field. And Saul said, what ails the people that they weep? And they told him the tidings of the men of Jabesh. And the Spirit of God came upon Saul when he heard these things. And his anger was kindled greatly. And he took a yoke of oxen, hewed them in pieces, and sent them throughout all the coast of Israel by the hands of messengers, saying, whosoever comes not forth after Saul and after Samuel, so shall it be done to his oxen. And the fear of the Lord fell on the people, and they came out with one consent. And we numbered them in Bezek, the children of Israel were 300,000, and the men of Judah 30,000. And they said unto the messengers that came, thus shall you say to the men of Jabesh Gilead, tomorrow, by that time the sun be hot, you are going to have help. And the messengers came, showed it to the men of Jabesh Gilead, and they were glad. Therefore the men of Jabesh said, tomorrow we'll come out to you, and you can do with us all that seems good unto you. He said that to the enemy. And it was so that on the morrow that Saul put the people in 3 companies, and they came into the midst of the host in the morning watch. That's like 3 o'clock in the morning. And slew the Ammonites until the heat of the day. It came to pass that they which remained were scattered, so that 2 of them were not left together. And the people said to Samuel, who is this that said, shall Saul reign over us? Bring them in that we may put them to death. So he's talking about those guys from Belial. And Saul said, there's not going to be a man put to death this day, for today the Lord hath wrought salvation in Israel. Then said Samuel to the people, come, let us go to Gilgal and renew the kingdom there. So all the people went to Gilgal, and they made Saul king before the Lord in Gilgal, and there they sacrificed sacrifices of peace offerings before the Lord. And there Saul and all the men of Israel rejoiced greatly. So, their king, on his first test, passed with flying colors. Chapter 13, verse 1. So then, Saul reigned 1 year, and when he had reigned 2 years over Israel, verse 2, he chose 3,000 men of Israel, whereof 2,000 were with Saul in Michmash in the Mount Bethel, and 1,000 were with Jonathan in Gibeah of Benjamin, and the rest of the people sent he every man to his tent. So he has 3,000 men now in his guard. Verse 3, and Jonathan smote the garrison of the Philistines that was in Geba, and the Philistines heard of it. And Saul blew the trumpet throughout all the land, saying, let the Hebrews hear. And all Israel heard say that Saul had smitten the garrison of the Philistines. Well, Saul hadn't. His son Jonathan had. And here we're starting to see something with Saul. Because Jonathan had done the deed, but Saul claimed it. All right? And they heard that Israel was had an abomination with the Philistines. And the people were called together after Saul to Gilgal. And the Philistines gathered themselves together to fight with Israel. 30,000 chariots and 6,000 horsemen, and people as the sand of the sea in multitude. And they came up and pitched in Michmash, eastward from Bethaven. And when the men of Israel saw that they were in the strait, because the people were distressed, then the people did hide themselves in caves and in thickets and in rocks and in high places and in pits. And some of the Hebrews went over Jordan. They crossed over to the other side of Jordan to the land of Gad and Gilead. As for Saul, he was yet in Gilgal, and all the people followed him trembling. And he tarried 7 days according to the set time that Samuel had appointed. But Samuel came not to Gilgal, and the people were scattered from him. Verse 9, and Saul said, bring hither a burnt offering to me, and peace offerings. And he, Saul, offered the burnt offering. Well, was Saul a Levite? No. Was he a prophet like Samuel? No. Verse 10. Came to pass, as soon as he had made an end of the offering, the burnt offering, behold, Samuel came. And Saul went out to meet him, that he might salute him. And Samuel said, what have you done? And Saul said, well, because the people were scattered from you, and that you didn't come within the day appointed, and that the Philistines had gathered themselves together in Michmash. Therefore said I, the Philistines will come down upon me to Gilgal, and I have not made supplications to the Lord. I forced myself, therefore, and offered a burnt offering. Well, was he supposed to do that? See, this is the kind of temptation that monarchs have when you have power and there's no restraint. You break the rules because you can. Verse 13. And Samuel said to Saul, you've done foolishly. You have not kept the commandment of the Lord your God, which he commanded you. For now, with the Lord would have established your kingdom upon Israel forever, but now your kingdom shall not continue. The Lord has sought him a man after his own heart, and the Lord hath commanded him to be captain over his people, because thou hast not kept that which the Lord commanded you. At this point, David might not have been born yet. And Samuel rose and gat him up from Gilgal and the Gibeah of Benjamin. And Saul numbered the people that were present with him, about 600 men. And Saul and Jonathan his son, and the people that were present with them abode in Gibeah of Benjamin, but the Philistines encamped in Michmash. And the spoilers came out of the camp of the Philistines in 3 companies to loot. One company turned one way, least Ophrah, in the land of Shual, and another company turned the way to Beth-oron, and another company turned to the way of the border that looks to the valley of Zeboim, toward the wilderness. Now there was no smith found throughout all the land of Israel, for the Philistines had said, let the Hebrews make them swords or spears. So they had been disarmed. The Philistines had disarmed the children of Israel. But all the Israelites went down to the Philistines to sharpen every man his share, his coulter, his axe, and his mattock. So to sharpen their agricultural instruments, they had to go down to the Philistines. No smith allowed in Israel. Yet they had a file for the mattocks and for the coulters and the forks and for the axes and to sharpen the golds. So the Philistines had disarmed Israel. What had happened to all the weapons they'd used to conquer the promised land? They'd been confiscated. So it came to pass on the day of the battle there was neither sword nor spear found in the hand of any of the people that were with Saul and Jonathan, except Saul and Jonathan there was found. They had 2 swords. Saul had one, Jonathan had the other. And the garrison of the Philistines went out to the passage of Michmash. Now, this is really interesting. Chapter 14, verse 1. Came to pass on a day that Jonathan, the son of Saul, said to the young man that bare his armor, "Come, let's go over to the Philistines' garrison that's on the other side." But he didn't tell his father. And Saul tarried in the utmost part of Gibeah under a pomegranate tree, which is in Migron, and the people who were with him were about 600 men. And Ahiah, the son of Ahitub, Ichabod's brother, the son of Phinehas, the son of Eli, the Lord's priest in Shiloh, wearing an ephod. And the people knew not that Jonathan was gone. And between the passages by which Jonathan sought to go over unto the Philistines' garrison, there was a sharp rock on one side and a sharp rock on the other side. The name of one was Bozez and the name of the other was Seta. These still exist today. This is in a big ravine, and they have these 2 rocks that stick out into the ravine. And the forefront of the one was situate northward over against Michmash, and the other southward over against Gibeah. Verse 6, and Jonathan said to the young man that bare his armor, "Come, let us go over unto the garrison of these uncircumcised. It may be that the Lord will work for us. For there is no restraint to the Lord to save by many or by few." And God's ears perked up. Ooh. And his armor bearer said to him, "Do all that's in your heart." So they were unified in their believing. "Turn thee, behold, I'm with thee according to your heart." Then said Jonathan, "Behold, we will pass over unto these men, and we will discover ourselves unto them." In other words, they're going to jump out and go, "Nah, your mother wears combat boots," or whatever. "Nah, we'll discover ourselves unto them." If they say thus unto us, "Tarry until we come to you," then we'll stand still in our place. We will not go up. But if they say thus, "Come up against us," and we will go up. For the Lord hath delivered them into our hand, and this shall be a sign unto us. So both of them discovered themselves unto the garrison of the Philistines. They jumped out and they said, "Nah!" And the Philistines said, "Behold, the Hebrews come forth out of the holes where they've hid themselves." And the men of the garrison answered Jonathan and his armor bearer, and said, "Come up to us, and we'll teach you a lesson." And Jonathan said to his armor bearer, "Come up after me, for the Lord hath delivered them into the hand of Israel." So Jonathan climbed up on his hands and upon his feet, and his armor bearer after him. So, picture this. Here is this long ravine, and out of one side of the hill is this rock that sticks out. And right opposite on the other side is another rock. So it would be like a geologic formation in which those 2 rocks originally bridged all the way across the ravine, and they were made out of tougher material than the rest of the ravine. And then as the ravine eroded, the easier material was eroded, but these rocks were still there, sticking out on the side of the hill. And they stuck out, and so what happened is Jonathan and his armor bearer are climbing up these rocks. So it's just a narrow place. It's not where you can stand side by side. They were coming up in sequence. And so the Philistines that were coming after them could not stand side by side either. They had to come out in single file, so to speak, and try to attack Jonathan one at a time. So Jonathan climbed up on his hands and upon his feet, his armor bearer after him, and they fell before Jonathan, and his armor bearer slew after him. So Jonathan knocks him over and the armor bearer stabs him. And Jonathan knocks him over and the armor bearer stabs him. And they're one by one because they have to come out this sharp rock that's sticking out into the ravine. See? One after another. And in that first slaughter with Jonathan and his armor bearer made, there was about 20 men within, as it were, a half an acre of land, which a yoke of oxen might plow. And there was a trembling in the host, in the field, and among all the people, the garrison, and the spoilers. And they trembled, and the earth quaked. So it was a very great trembling. So you know what? God added some spice. An earthquake. Because these guys were believing. Everybody else was hiding in the rocks. And these guys said, it doesn't matter. God can save by many or by few. So they were believing. And so, verse 16, the watchmen of Saul and Gibeah of Benjamin looked, and behold, the multitude melted away. And they went on beating down one another. They were frightened out of their woods. And then said Saul to the people who were with him, number now, see who's gone from us. And when they numbered, behold, Jonathan and his armor bearer were not there. And Saul said to Ahiah, bring hither the ark of God, for the ark of God was that time with the children of Israel. Came to pass while Saul talked to the priest, that the noise that was in the host of the Philistines went on and increased. And Saul said unto the priest, withdraw your hand. So in other words, he had the Urim and the Thummim, and he withdraw your hand. Tell me yes or no. What should I do? Okay. And Saul and all the people that were with him assembled themselves, and they came to the battle, and behold, every man's sword was against his fellow, and there was a very great discomfiture. So the Philistines were so distraught and so afraid, they thought they were surrounded, and so they started fighting. They thought they were in an ambush. And when you're in ambush, what do? You fight like crazy and you run for cover. Well, they were fighting like crazy against each other. Wow. So, verse 21, moreover, the Hebrews that were with the Philistines before that time, which went up with them into the camp from the country round about, even they also turned to be with the Israelites that were with Saul and Jonathan. So there were a bunch of turncoat guys that had joined the Philistines, and when they saw this happen, they changed sides again. Ha! Verse 22, likewise all the men of Israel which had hid themselves in Mount Ephraim, when they heard the Philistines fled, even they also followed hard after them in the battle. So the Lord saved Israel that day, and the battle passed over unto Bethaven. Chapter 14, verse 47. Chapter 14, verse 47. So Saul took the kingdom over Israel and fought against all his enemies on every side, against Moab, against the children of Ammon, against Edom, against the kings of Zobah, against the Philistines, and whithersoever he turned himself, he vexed them. Now, this brings up something very interesting about a place called Michmash. In World War I, the British were fighting the Turks in Palestine, and there was a battle of Michmash. And what's very interesting is that one of the captains for General Allenby heard this. What place is this? And they said it's called Michmash. He said, Michmash. I've heard that somewhere. Oh, it's in the Bible, Michmash. And so he got out the Bible. They didn't have concordances with them in their camp, so he got out his Bible and he read it and found it, stayed up half the night, and he found Michmash in Samuel here. And it talked about the strategy that Jonathan and his armor bearer followed to attack the Philistines. And here, the Turks were in the same area. That area, about half an acre, that oxen might plow. They were right there. And the rocks were there. The ravine was there. And so the captain looks at the strategy that Jonathan and his armor bearer had followed, because they knew the terrain. And he goes to General Allenby and he said, this might be how we can sneak up on the Turks when they don't expect us and go up these rocks right there. So that is what they did, and they beat the Turks, and they won the battle. I'm going to give you a PDF of that as well. That's just cool that the same strategy worked in World War I for the British. All right, chapter 14, verse 48. So Saul gathered a host, smote the Amalekites, delivered Israel out of the hands of them that spoiled them. Now the sons of Saul were Jonathan and Ishui and Melchizua, and the names of his two daughters were these. The name of the first one was Merab. The name of the younger was Micah. And the name of Saul's wife was Ahinoam, the daughter of Ahimaaz. And the name of the captain of his host was Abner, the son of Ner, Saul's uncle. And Kish was the father of Saul, and Ner, the father of Abner, was the son of Abiel. And there was sore war against the Philistines all the days of Saul. And when Saul saw any strong man or valiant man, he took him unto him. So, let's see here. We're going a little long, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave chapter 15 to next week. Saul was already showing signs of not being what he ought to be. He had showed that the power was starting to get to him. He was making decisions. He was doing things because he could. All right. And so chapter 15 is Saul's downfall. And he has only reigned about 2 years. He reigns a total of 40 years. So 2 years were good and 38 years weren't. So Samuel said that God was going to give the kingdom to someone better than Saul. That someone was David. And we're going to meet him in the next session. So, bless you.